Great,
Morning.
great.
Great. So God says here the basis of my forecasting method for grains, geometric angles. So you'll see that what geometric angles do, he'll talk about it, they divide time and price proportionately, right? And then we're going to try and understand today why that's important. So we'll just jump to the second paragraph here. Gan says, it's so simple and easy to solve problems and get correct answers and results with figures. It seems strange so few people rely upon them to forecast the future of business, stocks, and commodity markets. The basic principles are easy to learn and understand. No matter whether you use geometry, trigonometry, or calculus, you use the simple rules of arithmetic. And you do only two things, increase or decrease. So he's telling us there's an origin point, and it doesn't matter how you move away from that origin point, you're still increasing or decreasing when you break it down
By
to, right,
by adding or by dividing or by multiplying.
right. So you're either you're moving away in a positive direction from that origin point, right? If it's an integer, and a negative direction.
Correct, sir.
And then so now he's right. So he's telling us you need to use mathematics, and then mathematics are built up of numbers. So that's what he's going to increase. That's what he's going to describe now in numbers. So he says there are two kinds of numbers, odd and even. So now Gan was telling us, I remember before God was numbers, that this odd and even energy, right? The fact that there's odd numbers and even numbers, that's introducing polarity to nature, right? So we have plus and minus that comes from odd and even numbers, and all the ramifications of having polarity in our universe, right? So that even begins with numbers as well, as we see odd and even. That's what he's telling us. So we have buyers and sellers, right? The ebb and flow. We add numbers, which is increasing. We multiply, which is a shorter way to increase. We subtract, which decreases. And we divide, which also decreases. With the use of higher mathematics, we find a quicker and easier way to divide, subtract, add, and multiply, yet very simple when you understand it. So from the polarity, right, he describes the effects of the polarity in nature. For example, now this may not be popular with you know, many people from America today, but this is how Gan describes nature, right? So we don't want to start getting um, you know, political about what he says here, but just to understand that this polarity, this duality exists in nature. So he says everything in nature is male and female, white or black, harmony or inharmony, right or left. And as a result of that in nature, he says the market will move only two ways, up or down.
Or down. Yes.
There are three dimensions which we know how to prove. What's he talking about here, Viral? Width, length, and height. What's three dimensions? The cube
Yeah.
cycle, right?
Cube cycle, yes.
Right. So here he's hinting to the cube cycle. We use three figures in geometry, the circle, the square, and the triangle. We get the square and triangle points of a circle to determine points of time, price, and space resistance. Why? He's saying all cycles can be viewed as rotations, revolutions of 360 degrees. Right? The smallest cycle that Gan mentions is in tunnel through the air. He even says it's the smallest cycle we can use. And that's the ascendant, basically. So the Earth's rotation on its axis. But we also have a lunar cycle. And the lunar cycle, again, is a movement of the moon around 360 degrees. Okay, so Gan is telling us because everything can be measured in circles and rotations of 360 degrees, all cycles. So therefore, we can use equal divisions of the circle to get points of resistance. Okay, so if we divide the circle by 4 or a square, we get 90-degree points.
Correct.
And Gan is telling us if we come from the origin, wherever that may be, it doesn't have to be at 0, but if we come 90 degrees from there and divide, right, and divide it, then we'll get resistance. Same thing with the trine and any equal division of the circle for that matter. Then he goes and tells us that there are three kinds of angles: the vertical, horizontal, and diagonal, which we use for measuring time and price movements. Now, where do we use a horizontal and a vertical and a horizontal? Where do we use that? That's in the square of 9, right? So he calls the angles in the square of 9 also geometric angles.
Got it.
All right,
Okay.
so these angles, right, the cardinal diagonal cross, are 45 degrees from 1, and that's what I go over in the square of 9.
Got it.
Geometric angles, we're going to be using diagonals. And where are we going to use diagonals from? We're going to use them from highs and lows.
Perfect.
Okay. Which we use for measuring time and price movements. We use the square of odd and even numbers to get not only the proof of market movements, but the cause. So here he's hinting to the fact that we use geometric angles in a master chart as well, right?
Yeah.
Because the square of 9 is literally built of a square of odd and even numbers. You go 1 and you spiral around. So the next logical thing would be, because we say, okay, Gan, we came to you with a problem. What's our problem? Help us solve the market. What does it mean to solve the market? To solve the trend, right? Because
Yes.
if I know when the trend is changing, then I can get in with the least possible risk and maximize my gains.
Got it.
So Gan tells us, okay, no problem. Solve it with mathematics. Okay, mathematics are built up of what? Numbers. We need numbers. So where do we take the numbers from in order to solve the trend with mathematics? Well, the numbers are going to come from charts in the form of data points. And we've already seen the importance of charts when we're making forecasts. Okay, so now we're going to take a different perspective on the past and how we can gain information from the past. So Gan says how to make charts. Charts are records of past market movements. The future is but a repetition of the past. There is nothing new. As the Bible says, the thing that hath been is that which shall be. So we've seen this verse a lot, right? That's Ecclesiastes. Gan quotes it a lot. History repeats. The first time we saw it is in Tunnel Through the Air, chapter 7. History repeats, and with charts and rules, we determine when and how it is going to repeat. Therefore, the first and most important point to learn is how to make charts correctly. Because if you make an error on the chart, you will make an error in applying the rules to your trading. So what's he telling us? What's he warning us? He's warning us that in your chart, in order to correctly use a geometric angle, right, you're going to have to scale the chart accordingly, right? It's going to have a scale that allows you to solve the market properly, right? And that's the problem today is when you go on YouTube or wherever you try and learn, everybody has these ways, but if you look at what Gan's saying, you can prove that none of them are correct just by the logic in solving for those angles, for those lines. So here, Gan gives us a spacing for grains, right? But this would work on graph paper at the activity the market was at that time. So this is a spacing that he's giving us for this market. The question is, how can we arrive, right? How can we look at the formula, the proper formula, in order to arrive to the proper spacing for any chart, even if it's a chart on a computer? Okay, and that's what we're going to learn, and we're going to use mathematics, and we're going to step outside, think outside the box a little bit about what Gan is discussing. Now, the angle represents the flow of time, right, from a high or a low. And it converts that flow of time also, right, into price units. but it's essentially a different way of measuring time on the chart rather than, time frames or, whatever we're looking at based on the software. So the question is, how do we view time? Well, he talked about it already. We look at it as 360 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And he says
That's good.
here that there are 360 degrees in a circle, no matter how large or how small the circle may be. Now, remember, when Gan says an obvious statement, he wants us to look deeper, right? So we saw that in June lows as well, when Gan was telling us how much it went up and in how much time. So we didn't need him to tell that to us. We could have done, he's giving us the values. We could have done the calculation on our own if he wanted to, but we looked deeper and saw that he was actually discussing how to solve the hypotenuse there, right? For the vector map.
Yeah.
So here we're going to draw out again. And Gan is telling us how to look at time.
Mm-hmm.
Because time is relative.
Mm-hmm.
So he says there are 360 degrees in a circle, no matter how large or how small the circle may be.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think he's referring to? Think about a classroom in the 1950s.
Mm-hmm.
What was up in a classroom, do you think? Right? What was the image of? Concentric circles that you would see in a classroom.
Yeah. Okay. That,
Okay? So Gan is
yes.
telling us to look at time as a progression of a planet through space. Why? Because it's the only thing we can measure accurately is based on fixed cycles. So when we're thinking about time, if we actually looked up and was able to see far away, like as a bird's eye view like this,
Mm-hmm.
it's like we have natural clock built into the universe, at least in the solar system this way, right? There, it's like a clock. So each one is what? A keeper of time.
Mm.
Each one has its own rate of time in a fixed movement of 360 degrees.
Mm.
So if we want to plot time on a chart, we're going to have to use, Gan says, these fixed cycles of 360 degrees.
Okay. Okay. So we all we have to do take the different planets or just only one or is okay.
Oh, so next two lessons we'll be going through all this lesson, and the next lesson we'll be going through all the timekeepers.
Yes, it's okay.
All right, but we're jumping ahead. We have to understand why we need to use them in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So for that, next here, Gan says, okay, so once you know you need to draw a chart, and we're going to jump ahead a little bit because we're going to come back to how we properly scale it. But first, in order to do that, let's understand how Gan wants to draw us geometric angles. And he's going to define them here as well. So he says there are three important points which we can prove with mathematics or geometry: the circle, the square, and the triangle. After I have made the square, I can draw a circle in it using the same diameter and thereby produce the triangle, the square, and the circle. So what's the first thing he needs to draw?
Square.
A square. Now, if I want to square out a high or a low, what does that mean? Right? A lot of people say it, but I don't think many people know what it means. What does it mean to square out a high or a low? Well, he's going to show that as us in this example, but it's based on what Gan calls one of his greatest discoveries that he's ever made. And for that, we'll go to the beginning of chapter 6. And Gan says, this is one of the most important and valuable discoveries that I have ever made. And if you stick strictly to the rule and always watch grains when price is squared by time. So now he's going to tell you what he means. The next statement tells you it's not coming to say something else to give you another option. It's coming to define what's before it. So he says, if you stick strictly to the rule and always watch grains when price is squared by time, or in other words, he says, when time and price come together.
Got it.
So in order to forecast this, you'll be able to forecast the important, again, what we need, changes in trend with greater accuracy. So the name of the game, according to Gan, to solve for a trend is to find the point where price squares out with time. So where price is meeting with time. And that is why we need to use timekeepers in the first place. But how do we place them on the chart? Well, we place them on the chart through a square, basically. Okay, and you'll see how we do that. So now he defines it. He says the angles or moving trend line measure and divide time and price into proportionate parts. So he's telling us that randomly, by having a random chart where you just make it without scaling it properly, will not divide time and price into proportionate parts. First of all, it can't because time is relative, like we said, and there's more than one rate of time. So in order to divide time and price proportionately, you're going to have to put another rate of time that's scaled properly to the chart. The question is from where? So he says, refer to form 1 where I have drawn the square of 28. What's the square of 28? We'll open it up in a second. You will note that this is 28 high and 28 wide. In other words, 28 up and 28 across. It is the same as a square room, which has a bottom or floor, a top or ceiling, and sidewalls. What's he talking about again? The cube.
Yeah, cube.
Everything has width, length, and height. Okay, so Gan, tell me, why are you using a square and where from? Well, the square of 28 is being drawn from the low at 28 cents, which was the low price for cash wheat in 1852. And we're trying to find where price may square out with time based on 28. That's what he's saying here, okay? So let's go open up the square. So this is the square of 28. Actually,
Yeah.
I'll put it in the chat so maybe you can open it up if you'd like on your computer while we go through this. Excuse me. So he says, to get the strongest and most important points in the square, I divide it into 2 equal parts by drawing a horizontal and vertical line. Okay, what does this have to do with anything? Well, remember, we're trying to get the point for a change in trend. That's going to come from the strongest resistance. Gan explained to us why we need to create a square. And therefore, finding the strongest point with and the most important points in the square would be, he says, to divide it. Now, where does that come from? That comes from building. And now here you see a little bit of Freemasonry into what he's saying. Note angle marked A, which divides each of the smaller squares into 2 equal parts and runs from 0 to 28 diagonally. Okay, so A to 28. He says this is a diagonal line moving on a 45-degree angle and divides the large square into two equal parts.
Correct.
Then note angle B at 14 running horizontally across. This divides the square into two
Up and
equal
down.
parts.
Up and down. Yeah.
Note angle C, which is a vertical line running up from 14, which is half of 28.
Mm-hmm.
This crosses at the center or half point at 14, where the other angles cross, dividing the square into two equal parts.
Okay.
Oh, we have news now, Japanese news. Let's see what happens. Teaching and trading at the same time, Viral. You see that?
Okay. My also trade is on, but I'm not looking, sir. There is a problem. As a stop loss is hitting, I have not, because I was in some work, I have not exited.
Nice.
In
The
Nifty.
Gan says best not to look unless you're
Yeah.
looking unless you're looking for a setup. But once you're in, right,
Mm.
not to look.
Yeah.
Um. Okay. So he says here, next thing we need to do, right? Then note angle D, which forms another 45-degree angle, moving from the northwest corner to the southeast corner, crossing at 14 at the exact half point. Now, the
Mm.
question is, Viral, I have a question for you. Why is he only mentioning direction in the last corner?
Yeah, it's 45-degree.
But why didn't he put the other directions? Why didn't he put northeast or east?
Okay. Because not to west. Yeah, the price moves in up and down, sir.
But it can go
So,
down up. So you could have done southwest to northeast.
but the price also moves and time also moves. So,
But you can do that from the other side as well. So why specifically this angle? There's four
oh.
angles here.
Mm.
I don't expect you to know, Viral. This is one of the proofs that Gan was a Freemason. Do you know who Freemasons were?
No, sir.
No, you've
Is
never heard of the Freemasons? Okay, so the Freemasons were a secret society.
okay.
They still exist today, but the Freemasons that exist today don't know nothing. Okay?
Oh, oh.
They used to build with geometry. You see this?
Mhm.
45-degree angle,
Hmm.
90-degree angle, sorry, the square. So
Hmm.
the theory is that Gan was a Mason of the highest degree. Okay, George Washington was a Mason.
Hmm. Okay.
All the influential and most great people, I think Newton was a Mason as well.
Mhm.
And the Freemasons date back all the way to the time of the Bible, and the theory is that they actually helped build the Temple of Solomon.
Mhm. Okay.
And through their secrets of building their secrets of building are rooted in the secrets of nature.
Oh.
Okay, now
Yeah.
when a Mason begins his journey,
Mhm.
if you look at the lodge, here's the Masons right here. So this is the symbol. So you see 90-degree,
Hmm. Hmm.
and there's lodges all over the world. Okay, and here's a portrait of George Washington. He was a high degree Mason, 33rd degree Mason, and many
Mhm.
other influential people. So the lodge, right? An apprentice. Do you know what apprentice is? An apprentice is someone that's starting their journey to become a master. So they're learning from someone. Okay.
Okay.
In Freemasonry, they start in the Northwest.
Okay.
And when you become a Mason, that happens in the southeast part of the lodge. So this is like the lodge, the Mason lodge, their temple, so to speak.
Right.
And when you begin your studies, your ceremony takes place in the Northwest and finishes in the
Right.
Southeast.
Okay.
So
In India, there is a Vastu, sir. You must be knowing. It's uh, the whole different kind of when we are constructing the house or the office, we took the support of this Vastu, northwest, southeast, and this is the thing we are using in northwest. Is called the Nairutia corner.
so by the same principles you're saying.
Yeah, yes, yes, the same
Very,
principle. So,
very
yeah,
interesting.
so Vastu, you can look into the Google, sir. It's a total different theme of one segment is there in history. The total very big, lots of in history. All the houses are made by this concept.
Wow, there you go, right? So we can
Yes,
see that the Freemasons were using concepts in nature, right? Because building
yes, sir.
creation is just a fractal of the original creation. And if you use the same secrets and apply it, then we can get architectural feats, right? That you can
With
see
the
how
help of all these things, we can the light and the air the will come properly to in the house or the office or whatever building we are making. So the direction of the wind is also been considered in this, and the light sunlight can also be considered.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome. So and then we're also going to use this in the chart now. We're also going to see how market movements are created and built based on how they move in the square.
Mhm.
Okay, so now what we've done, we've just drawn it, and he says here that you see by this that if we draw the first line through the center of the square, we divide it into two equal parts. When we draw the lines from the other directions, we divide it into four equal parts. Then by drawing two lines from each corner, we divide the square into eight equal parts and produce eight triangles. We use 28 because 28 cents was the lowest price
Yes,
cash wheat
price.
ever sold. So we're drawing a square from an extreme low. Okay, that's what
Mm-hmm.
he's telling us here. Now, what's he going to do? He's going to prove the angle that we need to use in the market, which is the 45-degree angle. That's what we've been drawing here. So he says, as you look at this square, it should be easy for you to tell with your eye where the strongest support point is or resistance point. It is at the center where all angles cross. Four angles cross at this point. So naturally, this would be a stronger support point than a place where only one angle crosses. Okay, so he's telling us that there is no other. Remember, he said once you have the square, you can draw the circle, right?
Yeah.
So we have the degree of the circle. So
Mm.
45 degrees here. He's saying there is no other degree of the circle that will split the square evenly so many times. And therefore, for that reason, the 45-degree angle is the strongest angle and should be used to find the strongest support point or resistance point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, makes sense?
Yes.
The question is, though, how do we apply it to our charts? Okay, so
Mm.
let's take a look at a market. I'm sure you're going to want to do Bank Nifty.
It's nifty.
You want to learn on Nifty, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let me see what trading view. Nifty 50?
Yeah, Nifty 50.
Right. Nice. It'll be a challenge for me to get the scale because I don't remember if it's 130 or 13. But first, let's take a look at some of the common ways people erroneously apply geometric angles to the market, okay? So one way we could see is someone takes the angle tool,
Yeah.
takes an impulse, and then proceeds to plot, the angles.
Okay.
Now, if I was to go to somebody that used this method and tell them, hey, listen, it doesn't work, what would they tell me? Well, what about this? 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 Okay, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So my answer would be that yes, there is resistance or support here, but it's
Correct.
not based off the principles that Gan is talking about, because not only does the market move in squares, but the market also moves in ratios. And all we're doing here is plotting ratios from the impulse move. And because that was a strong impulse, it's going to give us ratios that we can use for support and resistance. But the rules that Gan gives in the mechanical method require us to be using a 45-degree angle. And this isn't a 45-degree angle. This is just plotted off an impulse and projected with ratios. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So that is incorrect.
Correct.
The next thing the other main thing I've seen people do is take a protractor. Okay. And line it up, something like that. Now, why is this incorrect? Because if I go like this,
That will change.
now this is my 45-degree angle.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So this also is incorrect. The question is now, so how can I draw a proper 45-degree angle? Well, we know Gan said we need to use the planetary orbits to get our time. But what is the process by which we will be plotting the angles? Well, let's try and remove the word angle, and let's try and break down what we're doing. Is we have an x-axis and we have a y-axis, and we're
Yes.
looking for a slope.
Right.
So what mathematical formula, right? Gan says we need to use mathematics. It's the only exact science. What mathematical formula will allow us to plot the slope of a line on the
Right.
chart? Right? So we
Right.
have y equals mx plus b, which is rise over run. Okay, so what we're basically doing is we need to draw a slope on the chart, right? Now, if we have 2 points, we can draw a slope to infinity without it mattering if the chart stretches or squeezes.
Yes.
So how do we get our 2 points? Right? We need x1 and y1, and we need x2 and y2. Well, guess what? What did Gan tell us the square is coming from? It's coming from a low. And the low is always, or a high is always going to have X1 and Y1 in the form of the price of the higher
Price
low
and
and the time of the higher low.
time. Yes.
All we need is the other point. So all we need to do is take an orbital period of a fixed cycle and project it forward from this point.
Okay.
By projecting an orbital period, right, a planet or the moon forward, we will also be moving forward in two variables, right? Time and we'll be moving, in time and degrees. So a certain amount of degrees is covered in a certain amount of time. Okay, so what we'll have is X will be the time forward, okay, and we will have degrees. And what we'll need to do is convert the degrees of movement into price, because Gann says we can convert degrees to price.
Oh.
So let's see how that is practically, all right? So let's say I want to draw an angle from this high, and I want to draw it sloping up here. Now you'll understand why in a bit, but just bear with me for now. So this high is 22,794.7, right? So that's going to be Y1 equals 22.
794.7.
There we go. And X1 will equal, we'll just say May 3rd. Sorry.
May 24.
Yeah, May 3rd. What is that? 6:45.
No.
UTC +3. Okay, now I need to solve for y2 and x2, right? So to do that, I need a fixed rate of time. And the one I'm going to use is for the hourly time frame is the lunar cycle. Okay? Now the lunar cycle, we have the new moon cycle, which has 3 players, but we also have the sidereal cycle, which is actual physical movement of the moon around the earth. Okay, and it's so that cycle, the lunar sidereal cycle, is equal to 27.3 degrees
Per month.
right? 27.3 days, sorry, over 360 degrees.
Okay.
Now, what I want is I want it in hours, right? I want it I want it in hours,
Hourly.
right? Because I'm on the hourly, and it's just that the hourly works really well with this rate of time, at least in today's market. So the lunar angle goes really well with the 1 hour time frame. Then you can look up on the 4 hour or go down to like the 15, but we draw it off the 1 hour. So what I do is 360 divided by 27.3, we get equals 13.18. Right, if I'm not mistaken, and we just round that to 13. Okay, numerology, round that to 13 degrees, and that's going to be 13 degrees per 24 hours.
Yes, sir.
Okay, make sense?
Yes, sir. Okay.
And now what we need though is hourly bars. Where do we understand that we need hourly bars? Let's go back to the text. So remember in the section how to make charts, okay, so Gan says here, no space is skipped on the daily chart or whatever chart you're looking at for Sundays or holidays. Therefore, the time period is for actual market days but you should carry the calendar day across the top or bottom of the daily chart so that you will know when the price is, and he's projecting the angles. Okay, so what we're doing is using only market time, and therefore if we have 24 hours, we're looking at 24 hourly bars. So if you're on the 23rd hourly bar on Friday, you'd still carry that over to the Monday, right? It wouldn't be on the weekend or anything like that. Beautiful. So now let's go back to the chart. And now we need to solve, right? X2, we'll say Y2, so Y2 will equal, let's do X2 first. X2 will equal X1 plus 24 hourly bars. And Y2 will equal Y1 plus 13 degrees. Now the problem is our chart is in the unit is price.
Yes.
And here we have degrees. So we convert degrees to price. So 13 degrees can equal 13 pips, $13. Okay, 13 points, etc. Now 13 can equal 130, 1.3, 0.13, right? 0.0013. It's a multiple of that 13. So
Yes.
in the third lesson, when I teach you how to scale for every market, right, is basically the technique I'm going to be using now. Now I can guess based on my experience that it's going to be 100 and no, actually it's going to probably be 13. But if I see that 13 doesn't work well, meaning it's not squaring price and time in the past, which we'll learn in depth, then I would probably jump up to 130. Okay. So I'll project here 24 hourly bars. Let's see how gold's doing. Gold's spiking. 24 hourly bars, and now we'll add, so we'll say Y1 22794.7. Okay, plus 130, sorry, plus 13 we're gonna do. 794.7 plus 13, 22807.7. And I can see, yeah, that's probably way too small. So we'll do 22794.7 plus 130, 22924.70. And now this intersect is my second point, x2 and y2. So this is x1, y1. Here is x2, y2. Now I can take my slope, my line, and plot it through. And now I can remove everything I'm not interested in because I'm only interested in the 45-degree angle. Okay, and now I can clone it. And there you go. There's one hit. Look at the resistance that came off from that bounce.
Yes, sir. Perfect.
Let's draw for the low now. So let's take this price, 21821.05. And we'll subtract now 130. We get 21,691.05. And I'll project 24 hourly bars.
Hmm.
And then I get my slope. And then I can clone it. Oh, did we draw this together last time?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Ah, that's right. I showed this and then it bounced. Alive, it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's correct. Okay, I remember now. Beautiful. Okay, so that is now the question is, why am I drawing my angles this way? So if we go to the chapter, at the back of the chapter, there are forms.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. 147. 140. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, so form one, right? So form one, square of 28. Then we have strong position and bull market. So he's saying if you have from a zero bottom here, which really isn't, or it would be the most extreme bottom,
Mm-hmm.
you could plot a 1 by 1 from there. And if we're above it, it's bullish. And if we're below it, it's bearish, like that. You see?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing from an all-time top. You can put the 1 by 1 from there, and if we're below it, it's a downtrend, right? And it's a bear market. If we get above it, that's a bull market. Zero top, not really applicable. Form 6 triple bottom. So here, Gun is drawing a 1 by 1 and a 1 by 2 off a triple bottom, and he says when they meet, there should be a
Perception
change
inside of
in trend. But I don't use that. Again, zero bottom, not applicable. Here we go. This is the first form that we're going to use. So form 8, we have B, which represents bottom. We draw a 45-degree angle down, 45-degree angle to the top. Notice that when price broke through, Gan was not interested until we came down from the low squaring with lows. That's what you're going to look for now. For now, it is true that the price can come below and then go lower. It doesn't have to be a buy, but I'll be teaching you what to look for when we get there. For now, just understand that we're drawing the form, okay? That's form 8. And form 9 is from a top up. Form 10 is from an M and the first bottom in that M form. Okay, you'll notice I draw that a lot. And same thing here, form 11. We draw from the actual top down. This you can use as well. I don't really do this much, but you can do that from the top of the M down. And when it comes down there, that would be another place to buy. So these are the forms that we're using. So just for instance, we'll take a look at form 8. Now you should be asking me, Sean, where's the square?
Yeah.
Right, Viral, where's the square?
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look. Just a second. Well, if this is the 45-degree angle and we're drawing it from a low, then here's the square. And there's our 45-degree. Now you understand why we draw it?
Yes.
We're trying, we're drawing. Gan tells us, okay, all the information is in the past. What are the most important points of data in the past? Well, it should be where the market moved from before. Those are previous highs and lows.
Right, sir.
And if we plot a 45-degree angle, we learned why, it's going to give us a place where the highest probability of a change in trend should occur from. Now, there will be rules that I'll teach you, which we need to use when deciding which angle to trade from. But for now, I'm sure you're curious how I knew I can clone to different highs and lows. Well, the proof of that is again in chapter 6, I believe. Yeah, here with squaring the price of grains with time. So Gan says, right? So here, right? So what are we doing? We're squaring time with a bottom or extreme low price, and we're squaring time with a top or extreme high price. Now, the way that Gan shows it here is basically taking the price and moving it over in days, months, in days, weeks, or months. Okay. Now that's the general way. Let me show you what I mean. So, if price is moving up, okay, we made a significant high here. Gan says price will square out 50 days, 50 weeks, 50 months. At all those points, 50 will vibrate. That's what he's telling us here. But that's you know, that doesn't really work well as if you're using things that we all vibrate to, right? We all vibrate to the moon, we all vibrate to the planets, we all vibrate to all these planetary bodies around us.
Yes.
Most people from India, thankfully, I don't have to convince you guys. You guys mostly grow up traditionally with that knowledge, right? It's like obvious knowledge as it should be. But the way I would you know kind of try and convince somebody on one leg of how a planet can affect us is because um, we are occupying the Earth, and the Earth has a magnetic field. The magnetic field is being bombarded by solar energy, basically, right? That's coming from the sun all the time. And that's absorbed by the Earth. It gets grounded, right, into the Earth. Now, in the Earth, there are humans, and humans have an electromagnetic field. Why? Because where there's electricity, there's magnetism. And our heart pumping creates a current. And therefore, we have an electromagnetic field around us. So the idea is that the movement of the planets within the space-time of the solar system would create deviations in the relationship between the sun and us. It's not necessarily that a cold, dark planet is sending vibes, right? It's that its position in relation to the sun will change, will fine tune, right? Based on the forces that even I don't understand, right, out there, but based on forces like gravity, for one, right? We don't know all the forces that are being acted upon us, but one force like gravity changing the gravity around, like the gravity position in the solar system between all the planets and the sun will change the relationship of the sun to us. Right. And then the sun, just like we said, if you ate roti that day for breakfast, right? So you ate roti, so you ate the sun in the form of a roti.
Yeah.
And that's why we vibrate to these angles. And so, for instance, if I wanted to understand what the square is here, right? There's my square. And if I want to see the true square of the market based on the moon, I just have to stretch it until all sides are equal. Okay, now this is just visualization. You don't have to do it. The beauty is because we have the slope fixed, I can stretch and squeeze and it doesn't move.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so what was I saying? So why do we look at other highs and lows? Because Gan says both major and minor tops and bottoms on all time periods must be watched. So what's he telling us? Why? Because they all square out right along. So the potential energy to square out price exists in every major or minor high or low. So the question is, how do we know which ones to use? That's going to be in lesson 3.
Okay.
Okay. So for now, Viral, practice plotting for this market specifically.
So, but how will be knowing that the time and price will be squaring?
Oh, that's the third lesson.
Okay, okay,
Right now, just look for price, what I call price meeting with time. This is when
yeah,
price, right? Because what's this angle? This angle is time.
right,
Remember that. Price we
okay.
don't control. Price we watch. But
Yeah,
we can
price
control
watch.
how we view time. So when price came here,
Hmm.
price met with time.
Yes, yes. Okay,
Once price
understood.
once price meets with time, it will produce a series of reactions, and those reactions are rules. We need to look out for those specific set of reactions, and that will create a change in trend according to Gan. But we'll get to that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so for now, yeah.
Was for Nifty, I'll apply this on first 1 hour chart with
Yeah, and
24 bars ahead and 130 points about the high and below low is mine. I have to minus it.
right.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, and yeah, so practice that. And also, what you want to do is read page. So right after here, squaring out with time, price ahead of time, page 155 here at the, of the actual PDF.
Okay.
Okay, read
That is
price ahead
okay.
of time.
Okay. So
Beautiful. Okay, awesome, Viral. So I can let me see. I think I can offer. I can offer Monday.
perfect.
Monday, same time.
Okay. Perfectly fine.
Yeah, that's good.
Perfect function.
Perfect. Okay,
Thank you.
awesome.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no problem, Viral. So I'll send over the recording as soon as possible.
No, no
And
worries.
if you have any questions, just let me know.
Be sure. Oh,
All right. Take care, my friend. Speak soon.
take care. Take care. Thank you.
Bye bye.